On a late summer morning in the year 79 AD, the Roman city of Pompeii woke up just as it always did. The sun rose over tiled rooftops, shopkeepers lifted their wooden shutters, and bakers pulled fresh bread from hot ovens. In the courtyards of the wealthy, slaves swept the stone floors while their masters lingered in frescoed rooms, cooled by fountains and shade. The air smelled of bread, wine, and the dust warmed by the Mediterranean heat. Life moved forward with the quiet confidence of a place that believed it had all the tomorrows in the world. Pompeii wasn't just some small town. It was a thriving Roman city, wealthy, crowded, and deeply connected to the wider empire. Its streets echoed with a dozen different languages. Its walls were a public diary covered in graffiti, political slogans, secret love notes, insults, and jokes. These were messages scratched by ordinary people who just assumed they would be read, erased, and replaced over time. Pompeii was alive, it was noisy, it was imperfect, and it was deeply human. Just outside the city, Mount Vesuvius stood against the sky. For generations, it had been silent. So silent, in fact, that no one living even remembered it as a volcano. Its slopes were lush and green with vineyards. Vias dotted its base, and farmers worked its rich soil without a second thought. To the people of Pompeii, Vesuvius wasn't a threat. It was just part of the background, as harmless as the hills. The first sign of disaster came shortly after midday. Without any warning, the mountain exploded. A deafening roar tore through the air as the summit of Vesuvius burst open, blasting a massive column of ash, gas, and rock straight into the sky. This cloud rose higher and higher, eventually reaching tens of kilometers above the earth. From miles away, it must have looked like a giant, terrifying pine tree made of smoke and fire. People froze where they stood, staring upward, trying to comprehend what they were even seeing. At first, many didn't run. Earthquakes were common in this region. Pompeii had experienced tremors for years. Walls would crack, dishes would rattle, buildings would shake, and then life would just go on. So this eruption, as strange as it looked, didn't immediately signal doom. Some people climbed to their rooftops to get a better view. Others went indoors for safety. A few, perhaps the more cautious ones, started gathering their belongings, thinking it might be smart to leave town for a little while. Then the ash began to fall. At first, it was light, like a gentle drift of gray snow from the sky. It settled on people's hair and shoulders and dusted the rooftops. Some children probably even played in it, but animals grew restless. As the hours passed, the ash grew heavier, now mixed with pumice stones that struck the roofs with dull, heavy thuds. The streets began to fill up. Breathing became difficult. The sky darkened until the sun disappeared completely. Day turned into night. Lamps were lit across the city as panic finally started to spread. Roofs began to collapse under the crushing weight of the volcanic debris. People screamed, families were separated in the suffocating darkness. Some tried to flee toward the city gates, but the streets were already choked with rubble and falling rock. Others took shelter inside their homes, believing, hoping that the stone walls would protect them. They had no idea what was coming next. Through the night, Vesuvius continued its relentless assault. The ash fell without stopping, the air grew toxic, and every breath burned the lungs. Those who remained indoors risked suffocation. Those who ventured outside risked being crushed by collapsing buildings. Pompeii was no longer a city. It had become a trap. In the early hours of the next morning, the eruption reached its deadliest phase. Vesuvius unleashed a series of pyroclastic surges. These were terrifying walls of superheated gas, ash, and rock racing down the mountain at incredible speed. They weren't slow lava flows. They were moving avalanches of heat, traveling faster than any human could ever hope to escape. When the first surge hit Pompeii, it completely overwhelmed the city in a matter of seconds. People didn't have time to understand what was happening. The heat alone was enough to kill instantly. Bodies collapsed right where they stood. Muscles contracted, limbs froze in place. Archaeologists found some victims clutching their faces in their final moments. Others were found entwined with their loved ones. Many were caught in the middle of an action, as if time itself had just slammed to a halt. By the time the eruption finally ended, Pompeii was buried. The entire city had vanished beneath several meters of ash and volcanic debris. Streets, houses, temples, bathhouses, everything disappeared under a gray, lifeless blanket. The few who managed to escape never returned. In the eyes of the Romans, Pompeii was considered cursed, dangerous, and lost. And then, the world forgot it ever existed. For centuries, Pompeii lay silent beneath farmland. Generations lived and died without ever knowing that a whole city was sleeping right below their feet. It wasn't until the 18th century that workers digging near Naples accidentally struck stone walls, painted rooms, and ancient streets. What they uncovered stunned all of Europe. Pompeii hadn't decayed and crumbled like other ancient cities. It had been preserved. The ash had sealed the city in an airtight tomb. Wooden doors rotted away, but their shapes remained imprinted in the ash. Furniture decomposed, but the empty voids were left behind. Food carbonized, but it survived. Loaves of bread were found still inside ovens. Wine jars still stood in taverns. Tools lay right where workers had dropped them. Pompeii wasn't just a collection of ruins, it was a single, frozen moment in time. The most haunting discoveries, however, came later. As archaeologists dug deeper, they found strange, hollow spaces in the hardened ash. When they carefully poured plaster into these cavities, human forms began to emerge: men, women, children, even animals. Their final positions were preserved with horrifying clarity. Faces contorted in fear. Hands raised in a futile attempt to shield themselves. Bodies curled inward for protection. These weren't artistic reconstructions. These were the echoes of real people. Modern science has revealed even more disturbing truths. Many victims weren't slowly buried alive. They were killed almost instantly by the extreme heat. Some of the skulls that were found show signs of thermal shock, where the brain essentially boiled. Lungs were filled with hot ash. In many cases, the heat may have caused instant organ failure before suffocation even had a chance to occur. Pompeii did not suffer a slow death. It was obliterated. The city also revealed the deep social divisions of Roman life. Wealthier citizens had stronger homes and a greater chance of escape. The poor, the enslaved, the elderly, and children were far more likely to be trapped. In some buildings, dozens of people were found huddled together, suggesting that servants and their owners died side by side, their social status completely meaningless in the face of nature's fury. The destruction of Pompeii also shattered Roman confidence. The Roman world believed in order, in engineering, in divine favor. Their cities were built to last. Their roads spanned continents. Their empire felt eternal. But Pompeii showed just how fragile that belief really was. In less than 2 days, one of Rome's most prosperous cities simply ceased to exist. Yet, in a cruel twist of fate, this absolute destruction became a unique form of preservation. While other Roman cities were rebuilt, altered, and eventually erased by time, Pompeii remained untouched. Today, it offers us an unmatched window into ancient life. We can see how people lived, loved, argued, worked, and dreamed. We can read their graffiti, walk their streets, and stand in their homes. Pompeii reminds us that history isn't only written by emperors and generals. It's written by ordinary people who never expected to become history at all. The fall of Pompeii is not just an archaeological wonder. It's a deeply human story about routine and illusion, about how quickly a normal life can collapse. The people of Pompeii weren't waiting for a disaster. They were planning their next meal, closing up their shops, and writing jokes on walls, and then the mountain spoke. Today, as visitors stand among the ruins and look into the hollow eyes of those plaster casts, frozen in terror, Pompeii delivers a message that feels disturbingly modern. Civilizations assume stability. Cities assume they are safe. People assume there will always be a tomorrow. Pompeii proves just how fragile all of those assumptions are. In a single eruption, time stopped, a city vanished, and the world was left with one of the most powerful reminders ever discovered: history does not always arrive slowly. Sometimes it comes in a cloud of ash, and everything you know ends before you even realize it has begun. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, consider subscribing for more journeys into the past.